There was evidence left at the scene. The bloody tape under Angie's body.
What?
It was wrapped around her head to stop the bleeding while she was being carried.
Bloody tape? Gonta didn't notice at all.
It was under the body. It's most likely evidence the culprit should have gotten rid of. But since it was hidden, the culprit didn't notice and failed to dispose of it.
It must have fallen as the fatal blow was dealt, and ended up under her body.
It must have been Atua who did that for us.
What? Atua? How long are you going to keep that up?
Now we know most of the mystery behind Angie's murder.
I'm convinced there's only one person who could have killed Angie. It has to be you!
Hey, Kiyo.
It's you, Kiyo. You killed Angie.
What the fuck? So it's true!
Well, that was obvious. Such a boring, obvious answer.
That was probably the most obvious murder so far, actually.
You killed both of them. Why? Why did you kill them?
In terms of pure logic, only one victim was necessary to win.
Why? Why you killed them both?
He had to keep Tenko's mouth shut.
I think one of the murders was an accident.
An accident?
That's right. It wasn't part of the plan.
Tenko's murder.
Huh? Which one?
The murder that was an accident. Really?
Damn it! That's it!
So he must have been stepped in on.
Angie's murder was an accident.
What? Tenko wasn't accident?
That's right. Kiyo originally planned to kill someone with a seesaw trick. But while he was making preparations in the empty room, Angie walked in.
Okay.
So he decided to kill her in order to keep her from talking.
She just happened to walk in on the culprit setting up and was killed.
Then he should have just stopped there. Once he killed Angie, there was no reason for him to kill Tinko.
He only needed to kill one for this game. Killing two is pointless. If you get bonus points for killing more, then sure. Otherwise, it leaves more clues behind.
Why, Kiyo? Why you kill two of our friends?
What on earth are you talking about? No, I'm not the culprit. So, why is everyone looking at me like I am? Why? Why are they? Why is it? Calm yourself, Korekiyo. Yes. You mustn't raise your voice. You mustn't stutter. You mustn't lose composure. You mustn't become flustered. You mustn't waver. Look at their horrid faces. This sorry lot is not worth agonizing over. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
There he goes again. What the hell's wrong with him?
It almost seems like he's talking with someone.
Someone? He's just talking to himself. And why the hell is he wearing lipstick?
No matter how loudly you protest, this is a trivial matter. I will never acknowledge your allegations. Not a single one of them. For you see,
Sure.
there is no evidence that I killed Angie. No, I will not acknowledge it. I will only acknowledge facts, true events. I won't acknowledge fiction, mystery. I won't acknowledge your deductions or guesses. Well said. Good job, Korekiyo. Yes, thanks.
Creeps me the fuck out!
No evidence. There's no evidence that they killed Angie.
You're wrong. There is evidence.
What? You do realize bluffs like that won't work, yes?
The weapon that was used to knock Angie unconscious in the empty room. That weapon tells us the whole story, Kiyo.
That's not possible. I think you may have misunderstood. Apologize. Come on, apologize. 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 Come on. Apologize. 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 Apologize.
Seriously, what the hell's happening?
I have no idea what's happening with Kiyo. But I know what weapon he used on Angie, and I have to prove it to him. Alright, here we go.
I have nothing to admit. You are simply wrong.
Yes, I'm not the culprit.
So I have nothing to confess. I have nothing to admit. You are simply wrong.
Yes, I'm not the culprit.
So I have nothing to confess. I have nothing to admit. You are simply wrong.
Yes, I'm not the culprit.
So I have nothing to... Why must you force your delusions on us?
Your logic.
That's merely a delusion. Well said, Korekio. To continue this debate is meaningless. Why must you force your delusions on us?
Your logic.
That's merely a delusion. Well said, Korekio. To continue this debate is meaningless. Why must you force your delusions on us? I told you I am not the culprit. So why are you looking at me like that? You're all wrong, not me. Korekio speaks the truth. Such a sorry lot. Apologize. 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 I told you I am not the culprit. So why are you looking at me like that? You're all wrong, not me. Korekio speaks the truth. Such a sorry lot. Apologize. 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 I told you I am not the culprit. So why are you looking at me like that? You're all wrong, not me. Korekio speaks the truth. Such a sorry lot. Apologize. 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 I told you I am not the culprit. So why are you looking at me like that? You're all wrong, not me. Korekio speaks the truth. You have no proof that Korekio is the killer.
It ends here!
Whew.
Kiyo hit Angie with the same floorboard used in the seesaw trick.
I see. And how do you know the floorboard was the murder weapon?
Because there was blood
There
on
was
it.
a small patch of dried blood on the underside of the floorboard.
Angie's blood?
Blood that spattered there when the culprit struck Angie with the board. But that's not the only evidence that she was hit with that floorboard. There's also the bloodstain under the floor to consider. The floorboard must not have been in place at the time of the attack.
Good point. Had the floorboard been in place, her blood wouldn't have splattered beneath it.
Kiyo's earlier confession is further evidence that the floorboard was used.
How?
If the weapon used to hit Angie is the floorboard from the seesaw trick,
It means the culprit knew about the seesaw.
He was the only one that would
so
know.
the same person killed Tenko and Angie. I
Yeah.
believe that while Kiyo was setting up the seesaw, he was holding the board. When Angie walked in.
her with the floorboard!
All you can do now is accept it. You even confessed to Tenko's murder already.
So it's true. This is the truth.
Unfortunately.
Looks like we're almost at the end. All right, Shuichi. I'll leave the finale to you. Bring down the house.
Alright.
Ichi, please, put an end to this.
Time for closing arguments.
For Angie and Tenko's sake. End this class trial.
I understand. I'll go over everything one more time. Kiyo, I want you to confess. No, I will force you to confess.
Who is the culprit with the saw in the empty room? What kind of weapon knocked NGA unconscious? What was compressing the injury? What weapon killed Angie? Okay. Small stone. Yep. Now I have 2 different places. Okay, that's whose effigy is this? Okay, yep. Path was made with salt. Whoops, nope, wrong. Gotta be careful here. Will all of these become unlocked? Okay. Who was the culprit with the soul in the empty room? Okay. 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 Oh, whoop. Forgot about this one. And the last piece of evidence.
This is the truth of the case.
Okay, that was a little nerve-wracking.
Let's look back at the first murder. It was late last night. The culprit was in the empty room on the 4th floor. The culprit was preparing the seance murder they had planned. To use the floorboard as a seesaw, they had to cut the crosspiece supporting it. The plan was to make the same preparations for all 3 empty rooms. This would divert suspicion away from the culprit and whoever picked a room. To cut the crosspieces, they needed a saw. I imagine they got one from the warehouse. They were planning to cut the crosspieces in all 3 rooms. However, when the culprit was working on the middle room, the unexpected happened. Angie walked into that room and saw the culprit making their preparations. She needed some fire for the ritual and had gone to the room for a candle. At that point, the culprit had not finished the setup and was just cutting crosspieces. Angie might not have concluded that it was tied to some kind of murder plan. But now that Angie had seen it, the culprit couldn't use the seesaw trick. Any other person might have just given up, but not our... The culprit took the floorboard they loosened and struck the unsuspecting Angie in the head. The culprit did not want to give up on their plan and had to improvise. They wrapped duct tape around Angie's injury to stop the bleeding. Then they picked up her unconscious body and carried her to a research lab. While she was unconscious, the culprit hurried to tie up this loose end. But because they were in a hurry, they made a crucial oversight. They didn't notice the duct tape had peeled off and was under Angie's body. Without that evidence, we may never have figured out the culprit's trick. Carrying the supplies they needed, the culprit returned to the ultimate art lab. Locked the front door from inside. And took out the katana they brought from their own lab. They then stabbed Angie in the back of the neck, finally killing her. Then, to further confuse us, the culprit attempted to make a locked room mystery. First, they used rope from the warehouse and hung 4 effigies upside down.
And this really a lot, like going through it, it's a lot more fucked up than I anticipated.
There were 2 reasons for this. To overwhelm the room with an occult atmosphere, and the other was the key to locking the room. The culprit stuck the katana into Kaede's effigy near the rear entrance. And spun the effigy around to twist up the rope. After enough turns, the culprit let go and headed for the rear door. Once released, the effigy began spinning, and the gold leaf katana with it. The handle of the katana then hit the sliding lock, locking the door. A difficult trick, But remember that the lock was so loose it moved at the slightest touch. The culprit also would have had the opportunity to attempt it many times. Once complete, the door was locked, but the duct tape was left behind. Perhaps the culprit noticed it, but by that point, it was too late. The room was sealed. There was no way for them to get back inside. Then, this morning, we opened up the room and discovered Angie's body. But the culprit wasn't finished. They wanted one more murder. To do that, they manipulated us into performing this seance. Of the 3 empty rooms, the middle one was chosen for the seance. I was invited by Kokichi to take Kibo's place in the seance. Tenko volunteered to be the medium, but she never imagined it would get her killed. To perform the seance, the culprit claimed they needed something for Tenko. A small stone that Himiko had brought from the courtyard. Tenko, at the culprit's request, bowed her head until it was touching the stone. That position was instrumental in making sure the murder went as planned.
Something so innocuous.
Next, Kokichi and I placed the iron cage over Tenko in the middle of the magic circle. The culprit then volunteered to drape the white cloth over the iron cage. We didn't realize it at the time, but that was a deliberate decision by the culprit. They needed to set up the murder weapon that was used to kill Tenko. While they were covering the cage with a cloth, they secretly placed the sickle. Finally, 4 of us placed the wooden statue on top of the cage. The culprit used the weight of the statue to keep the murder weapon in place. After the preparations were complete, we began the seance. In complete darkness, we each stood in one corner and sang the Caged Child song. When the song finished, the soul of the dead was supposed to enter the medium. But our culprit had another plan: to commit a murder in the darkness. Right after we started singing, the culprit began making their way toward Tenko. It would have been quite difficult to do in total darkness, but our culprit had a guide. They used the lines of the magic circle drawn with salt.
For how complicated this murder was, it was very simple to deduce, surprisingly.
The culprit felt for the salt and used it to guide them along. And when the culprit reached the center of the circle, they found the floorboard that had its crosspiece cut off the night before. Then lifted up their foot and stomped down hard on the floorboard. The floorboard lifted up like a seesaw and pushed Tenko's body up toward the ceiling of the cage. Tenko was stabbed in the back of the neck by the sickle on the top of the cage. She was killed right before our eyes, and we didn't even see it. After committing the crime, the culprit followed the salt back to their corner. Finished the ritual and had us light the candles. we followed the culprit's directions and removed the equipment used for the seance. And discovered Tenko's body. And while we were all focused on the body, the culprit picked up the sickle and dropped it under the floor through the hole in the corner of the room. Ironically, the final step of the murder was unwittingly carried out by us. The culprit had planned the murder so that we would unintentionally destroy some evidence. That evidence was the magic circle that the culprit used to navigate in the dark.
Yep.
However, the culprit didn't know that Kiyo had taken a picture. He really saved us. Without that, we wouldn't know what changes were made to the circle. But now we know for certain, and we know the culprit drew the magic circle.
I wonder if you could... I wonder if anyone who has played this game noticed that beforehand, because I know I sure didn't.
Korekio Shinguchi, the ultimate anthropologist. You're the culprit behind these murders.
Alright.